Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 19th, 2023. Today I'm going to recap the Monday Night Football games from yesterday. I will look ahead to the baseball games tonight after I recap the games from yesterday. With WNBA playoffs tonight, we have a couple of game twos. I have a future for the portfolio, NFL power rankings, news and notes, and best bet. We'll start with Monday Night Football. We will talk about the games from last night. There were two games. One of them took forever, and the other one was just boring. The Saints beat the Panthers 20-17. They're 2-0. The Panthers are 0-2. Derek Carr, 21 of 36, 228 yards and a pick. Bryce Young, 22 of 33, 153 yards and a touchdown. And the second of the two games, the Steelers beat the Browns 26-22. Steelers are 1-1. Cleveland's also 1-1. Kenny Pickett, 15 of 30, 222 yards, a touchdown and a pick. And Deshaun Watson, 22 of 40, 235 yards, a touchdown and a pick. So my final Fab 5 pick of the Steelers getting the points worked out. They needed the game. They were under a ton of pressure, and they got the job done. So we'll get into more football and whatnot as the show progresses. Then we'll do baseball. Smaller window than normal because the team's traveling and whatnot. Royals defeat the Guardians 6-4. Reds over the Twins 7-3. Mets over Marlins 2-1. White Sox over the Nats 6-1. Phils over the Braves 7-1. Cards over the Brewers 1-0. Red Sox over the Rangers 4-2. O's over the Astros 8-7. Mariners over the A's 5-0. So best bet lost. Padres over the Rockies 11-9. And the Dodgers over the Tigers 8-3. All right. Tonight's slate 6:30. You have the Angels at the Rays. Patrick Sandoval, Taj Bradley. Big games for Tampa. They're two back in the AL East, where things stand right now after winning two games in Baltimore to get the split. I thought the Rays needed to win that series if they wanted a serious hope of winning that division. I mean, there is still hope, but it's not as serious as they would like. They're minus 205 tonight. The Angels are plus 172 over under 8, minus 120. Angels plus 1.5 is minus 122. Rays minus 1.5 is plus 102. I'm going to go with the Rays run line. No Ohtani for the Angels. Obviously, he's done for the season, so I'm going to lay the 1.5 with the Rays. Twins Reds. Kenta Maeda and Fernando Cruz. Twins minus 130. Reds plus 110 over under 9. Overs minus 120. Unders minus 102. Twins minus 1.5 is plus 126. Reds plus 1.5 is minus 152. Two teams. So the Twins, obviously, almost clinching the AL Central, and then the Reds going for a wild card. So for this one, I'm going to go with over 4.5 Reds runs at plus 102, just to do something different. Mets Marlins. Joey Lucchesi and Braxton Garrett. Marlins minus 156, Mets plus 132, over under 8, minus 110 each way. Mets plus 1.5 is minus 160. Marlins minus 1.5 is plus 130. I like the under a lot. Lucchesi's pitched well for the Mets, and Garrett's been okay for the Marlins. 7 o'clock, Jays, Yankees. Yusei Kikuchi, Clark Schmidt. Blue Jays need the games for the wild card. They're favored slightly, minus 110. Yankees are minus 106, over under 8.5. Overs minus 112, unders minus 108. Jays minus 1.5 is plus 140. Yankees plus 1.5 is minus 170. The Yankees haven't been home in a while. So we'll see how this crowd is. I honestly don't think the crowd's going to be great. Unless if, Aaron Judge has, 4 home runs in a game or something, honestly. So give me the Blue Jays minus 110. I think getting the Blue Jays at a discount in a game that they need to win is pretty good. Although the Yankees are favored according to ESPN Analytics. White Sox, Nats. Jose Urena and Jackson Rutledge. White Sox minus 104, Nats minus 112, over under 9.5. Overs minus 115. Unders minus 105. White Sox minus 1.5 is plus 115. Nats plus 1.5 is minus 176. I like the over. And by the way, the Yankee Blue Jay thing, the Yankees are now favored minus 112. The Jays are minus 104. That's ridiculous. That's just stupid Yankee fans that are delusional thinking that they have a shot to get the last wild card. That's what that is. I still like the Blue Jays at minus 104. On CBS tonight, 7:20 of the Phillies and the Braves. That's a big one. Chris Sanchez, Spencer Strider. Phillies are in decent shape in the NL wild card, but I think they need to separate themselves. The Braves are playing for home field advantage in the National League, but really, if I'm Atlanta, is it worth playing your guys? I know the one seed's important, but what's also important is keeping your guys healthy. They have a 3-game lead on the Dodgers in the loss column for the 1 seed, so still should win the games, especially against teams that you might see in October, like Philadelphia. So, we'll see there. Braves are minus 215. The Phils are plus 180. Over under 9. Overs minus 105. Unders minus 115. Phils plus 1.5 is minus 115. Braves minus 1.5 is minus 104. I like the Phillies outright plus 180. I think one of these underdogs is going to win outright. That's a big underdog. With the Braves 3.5 up on the Dodgers for home field. Or 2.5. And they should get it. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Dodgers at least make it somewhat interesting. So I'm going to take the Phils plus 180. Because like I said, if I'm Atlanta, results are kind of not really irrelevant, but keeping the team healthy for what should be a special run to the Fall Classic is more important if you're Atlanta. So give me the Phillies at plus 180, just because that's a big number, and the Phils need the games more to hang on for the wild card. 7:30, the Guardians at the Royals. Logan Allen and Steven Cruz. Guardians minus 164, Royals plus 138, over under 9.5, minus 170 fight. Guardians minus 1.5 is minus 105, Royals plus 1.5 is minus 114. I like the under. That's a high number. Pirates Cubs from Wrigley. TBD and Javier Assad. Cubs minus 164, Pirates plus 138, over under 9. Overs minus 105, unders minus 115. Pirates plus 1.5 is minus 152, Cubs minus 1.5 is plus 136. I love the under. The Cubs need the game. Assad for Chicago has actually been pretty good for them. So I like the under. Brewers Cardinals at 7:45. Trevor McGill and Drew Rahm. The Brewers on their way to an NL Central title. Just keep everybody healthy at this point. Similar to the Twins in Atlanta in a way. Brewers minus 126. Cards plus 108. Over under 9. Minus 110 each way. Brewers minus 1.5 is plus 130. Cards plus 1.5 is minus 156. I like the under, but I do not feel good about it. 8 o'clock, Red Sox Rangers. These are huge games. Tanner Houck, Nathan Eovaldi. So Eovaldi against his former team. Rangers minus 156. Red Sox plus 132. Over under 9. Overs minus 102. Unders minus 120. Boston plus 1.5 is minus 154. Rangers minus 1.5 is plus 128. So Boston is now in last place in the division after the Yankees beat them 3 out of 4 in Fenway. After literally a month ago, we all thought the Yankees were going to finish in last. Now it looks like the Red Sox are going to finish in last. And Texas needs the games. Eovaldi revenge spot. Houck has been disappointing for Boston. I like under 3.5 Boston runs plus 106. Eovaldi really needs to step up for Texas. O's Astros, that's another big one. Kyle Gibson, Hunter Brown, 2 teams going for division crowns. ALCS preview potentially. Astros minus 152, Orioles plus 136, over under 9. Overs minus 106, unders minus 114. O's plus 1.5 is minus 154. Astros minus 1.5 is plus 128. I like the under only because I think that that number's a little high at 9. So I like the under, and plus it's a big game. 9:30 Mariners A's. Luis Castillo and Paul Blackburn. Mariners minus 205, A's plus 172, over under 7.5, overs minus 102, unders minus 120. M's minus 1.5 is minus 115, A's plus 1.5 is minus 104. I like the over. Giants D-backs. Alex Cobb and Zach Gallen. The Giants have fallen apart. The D-backs are still in the mix. D-backs minus 148, Giants plus 126, over under 8.5, overs minus 105, unders minus 115. Giants plus 1.5 is minus 166, D-backs minus 1.5 is plus 138. I like the under. Do not feel strong about it. Rockies Padres. Ryan Feltner and Blake Snell. Padres minus 290. Rockies plus 235. Over under 7.5. Minus 10 each way. Rockies plus 1.5 is plus 112. Padres minus 1.5 is minus 134. I like the over a lot in that game. And then last but not least, the Tigers at the Dodgers at 10 o'clock. Miguel Diaz TBD. Dodgers minus 225, Tigers plus 188, over under 9, overs minus 105, unders minus 115. Tigers plus 1.5 is minus 106, Dodgers minus 1.5 is minus 113. I like the under. Diaz has actually been pretty good for Detroit. And I don't see Detroit scoring runs, so that's an under. All right, the WNBA playoffs. We did a little bit of baseball talk, as we should, because it's been a minute since I've gone a lot of baseball talk. Maybe we'll do power rankings tomorrow. We have 2 playoff games tonight, both on ESPN. First 7 o'clock, you have the Mystics at the Liberty. Liberty up 1-0 in the series. They're going for the sweep tonight. They're giving 10.5 totals, 162.5. So I am close to admitting defeat on the series, only because I thought this would go 3 and the Mystics would be a sneaky 7 seed for the Liberty. But the Liberty looks serious. They are determined. They are not taking the Mystics for granted. So I'm going to go with the over, because I think 10.5 is a big number. And I think there's a reason why it's 10.5. 9 o'clock on ESPN, you have the Dream and the Wings game 2. The Wings coming off the win in game 1. They are giving 6.5 totals, 170.5. I'm going to take Atlanta getting the points to hang around. I don't know if Atlanta will force a game 3. But I do think that this will be a close game. So give me Atlanta getting 6.5 against Dallas for tonight. All right, now I'm going to do the portfolio. There's a couple futures I have in my mind. I just want to see what the numbers are. I'm not going to give away the exact bet, but I'll give away what category. So I'm deciding with NFL Coach of the Year. There's a coach that's currently undefeated right now in a weak division that's actually done a good job through a couple of weeks. There's a pick I gave out on the college football season preview show. And I think that it shouldn't be counted out, but I don't see it anymore. I guess it was just a preseason thing. Another one I want to see is NFL Comeback Player of the Year. Because I think the market misevaluated it a little bit. All right, it's adjusted, but I understand why Damar Hamlin is favored. And the other one I want to see is Rookie of the Year. Okay. There's a couple I have in my mind. The one I was looking at, that particular player, or coach, I should say, for Coach of the Year, is at a number that I think is still bettable. But I don't know if it's conceivable. I'm just looking at division odds really quickly in case anything jumps out in that market. Nothing jumps out in the divisions. But I am thinking about awards for the NFL. Everybody loves Puka Nacua of the Rams. He's plus 650 for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think the week to get him was last week. There was a player on a team that had a big second half last week, and this rookie receiver was a big part of it and could end up being this particular team's WR1 by the end of the season. So the one I was thinking about was Todd Bowles for Coach of the Year, but that's 14-1. Everyone's betting that. So, I like to go with big numbers. And that particular receiver I'm talking about is Jalen Hyatt of the Giants. He's 60-1 to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was so good in that comeback against the Cardinals on Sunday. So I'm going to do a fifth of a unit on Jalen Hyatt at 60-1 to win the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. Do I feel good about it? No. But I just like to bet on long shots, and that's the whole point about a portfolio. Sometimes go with the value and see where it takes you. And potentially in a couple weeks, we may be hitting some portfolio bets. So that's to keep an eye out. And one of them is actually a winner, but we're not going to get the cash back until the beginning of October, and that's under 82.5 Angel wins. Because they clinched a losing record the other day. So we're going to win that one that I gave out on the preseason show. So that's what I wanted to mention. All right, now we'll do power rankings for the NFL. No particular theme of this week. It's just going to go over what every team has done so far and look ahead to this upcoming week. Number 32 is the Arizona Cardinals. They're 0-2. They blew a lead against the Commanders on the road, and they blew a big lead against the Giants at home. I'm convinced they tanked that game. I know teams really don't tank on the field, but I'm borderline convinced that they did. And then coming up, they host the Cowboys, which is very interesting. Number 31 is the Houston Texans. They are also 0-2. Week 1, they lost at Baltimore by double digits. And then last week, they lost to Indy in their home opener. Coming up for Houston, they play another divisional game. I believe they're at Jacksonville coming up. Yes, at Jacksonville. Number 30 is the Carolina Panthers. They're 0-2. They lost at Atlanta, and they lost their home opener last night against the Saints. Coming up, Carolina is at the Seahawks. The Seahawks are going to be an interesting survivor pool pick, but they knocked a lot of people out in week 1. That's for sure. Number 29 is the Denver Broncos. They're 0-2. They lost at home to the Raiders. Close game. And they lost at home to the Commanders in a close game. And coming up, they're at the Dolphins. And now there's rumors about Russell Wilson potentially being benched. Although, he wasn't that bad against Washington. He threw that Hail Mary, but because they didn't get that Hail Mary, nobody cares, and he's looked upon as the fall guy for why they're 0-2. 28 is the Chicago Bears. They are 0-2. They lost at home to Green Bay in week 1, and last week they lost at the Bucs. Coming up, they are at the Chiefs, and Justin Fields has been very disappointing to start the year. Number 27 is the Las Vegas Raiders. They are 1-1 on the year. They beat Denver in week 1, and they lost in Buffalo in week 2, which is expected. And they host the Steelers on Sunday Night Football on Sunday, which is interesting. Number 26, the Indianapolis Colts. They are 1-1 to start the year. They lost at home in the opener against the Jaguars in a competitive game. And then they beat the Texans after that. And coming up, Indy is at the Ravens, in what should be an interesting game. Number 25, the Washington Commanders. They're 2-0 on the year. This is obviously the weakest 2-0 team in the league. They barely beat the Cardinals, and then they barely beat the Broncos. You could argue they should be 0-2, at least 1-1. And they had to come back to beat the Broncos. Coming up, they have a game against the Bills at home. Number 24, the Los Angeles Rams. They are 1-1 on the year. They beat Seattle in week 1. They lost at home to San Francisco in week 2. Coming up, they are... Why don't I see the Rams on my sheet? They're on Monday Night Football at the Bengals. So you got to see the new interesting look Rams on Monday Night Football against Cincy. 23, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're 2-0. Also, they have wins over the Vikings and the Bears. Coming up, they host the Eagles on Monday Night Football. So, two very interesting teams on Monday Night Football next week in terms of early season surprises in the Bucs and the Rams, who everybody and their mother thought were going to be 0-2 after 2 weeks. Number 22 is New England Patriots. They're 0-2. We have a couple of 0-2 teams that are ranked highly because I feel like they're fluky 0-2, or I have confidence in these teams to turn it around. So New England's 0-2. They lost against the Eagles and they lost against the Dolphins. They're a couple plays away from being 2-0. Coming up, they're at the Jets in a game they absolutely have to win. Number 21 is the New York Jets. They are coming off a loss to the Cowboys, and in week 1 they beat the Bills in the game where Aaron Rodgers got hurt in the opener. And then coming up, they host the Patriots in a game they kind of need too. Number 20 is the New York Football Giants. They are 1-1 on the year. A couple of plays away from being 0-2. But 1-1 is better than 0-2, and that's the reality, and that's what you got to say if you're the Giants. Despite how you got there, 1-1 is better than 0-2. They lost bad against Dallas on Sunday Night Football in the opener, and then they came back from 21 down to beat the Cardinals last week. Maybe that's going to spark them a little bit, and they play on Thursday at San Francisco. Number 19, the Minnesota Vikings. They're 0-2 on the year, so there's an 0-2 ahead of a 1-1. It's because the Vikings are a couple plays away from being 2-0. So that's the case for the Patriots being higher, but the Vikings, I think, was a little bit of luck against them, especially in that Eagles game, which they could have won. So they did lose to the Eagles on Thursday Night Football, and then before that they lost at home to the Bucs. Coming up, they have what is potentially a loser leaves town match against the Chargers. Both teams are 0-2. Number 17 is the Tennessee Titans. They're 1-1 on the year. They lost at the Saints in a very good defensive game, and then they beat the Chargers in overtime. And then coming up, they play the Browns in Cleveland. Number 16, the Green Bay Packers. They are 1-1 on the year. They beat the Bears pretty good in the opener, and then they lost against the Falcons as they blew a lead in that game. Coming up for Green Bay, they host the Saints. That's an interesting game. Number 15, the Detroit Lions. They are 1-1 on the year. They beat the Chiefs in the opener. And then they lost at home against Seattle. Coming up for Detroit, they are hosting the Falcons. That's another interesting game. The Falcons are next at 14. They are 2-0 in the year, a weak 2-0 in my opinion. Beating the Panthers and then a Packer team that I think is a little bit overrated because it's Green Bay and I'm not a LaFleur fan, or I feel like the Packers, they're just not the same without Rodgers, and I don't trust Jordan Love quite yet. So that's why I think the Falcons are a week 2-0. And coming up, they're at the Lions, and an interesting spot. Number 13, the Seattle Seahawks. They are 1-1 the year. They lost at home against the Rams in the opener. That was bad. And then they bounced back and beat the Lions in OT. Coming up for them, they host the Panthers in a game they should win. Number 12, the Cincinnati Bengals. They're 0-2. It's the highest ranked 0-2 team on the list because they're the Bengals. Joe Burrow's obviously not healthy. They lost at the Browns and then at home against the Ravens. They came back in that game, but the comeback fell short. Coming up for them, they host the Rams on Monday Night Football in what should be a very interesting game and a game the Bengals need to win. Number 11, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are 1-1 the year. They beat the Colts in the opener in Indy, and then they lose at home to the Chiefs in a low-scoring game. Coming up for them, they host the Texans in a game that they arguably need. Number 10 is the Cleveland Browns. They are 1-1 the year. They beat the Bengals in their home opener in week 1, and then they lose at Pittsburgh in a game they could have won. Yesterday, Nick Chubb will talk about his injury news notes. That was just absolutely brutal for the Browns. Coming up for Cleveland, they host the Titans. Number 9, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very big bounce back for them, beating the Browns last night, and then they lost bad to the Niners on last Sunday in week 1. And then coming up for Pittsburgh, they are at the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. But yeah, I feel better about the Steelers now than I did a week ago. And I probably am overrating them a little bit. They have injuries and whatnot. But I thought that was a game that they needed to win. Number 8 is the New Orleans Saints. They are 2-0. They beat the Titans at home and then the Panthers last night. Coming up for them, they're at the Packers. 7, the Buffalo Bills. They are 1-1 the year. They lose to the Jets on Monday Night Football last week, and then this week they beat the Raiders in a get right spot. Coming up for them, they're at the Commanders. 6, the Kansas City Chiefs. They are 1-1 the year. They lost at home to the Lions in the opener, and then they beat the Jaguars on Sunday. Coming up for them, they host the Bears. And they're going to be everybody's Survivor Bowl pick. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. They're 2-0. They beat the Texans and they beat the Bengals in an impressive game without a bunch of starters. Coming up for them, they host the Colts, and it's not a guarantee. I'll put it that way. Number 4 is the Miami Dolphins. They are 2-0 in the year with wins over the Chargers and the Patriots. I know people are going to be haters and say Tua can't stay healthy, and then the two teams that they beat are combined 0-4. That's all true, but the Miami Dolphins are an impressive football team, and they're talented, and I picked them to win this division before the year. Coming up for them, they host the Broncos. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles. They are 1-1. They're 2-0 in the year. It feels like they're 1-1. But they're a couple plays away from being 0-2. Throwing that out there. But they're 2-0. They beat the Patriots and they beat the Vikings. And then the Eagle haters, mostly Cowboy fans and Giant fans even, are probably like, oh, well, the Eagles are 2-0, but the two teams they beat are 0-4. Well, guess what? They were in the Super Bowl a year ago. They should have won the Super Bowl. If Hurts doesn't throw the pick six, they win that game. And then there's obviously the bad penalty at the end of the game, too. But they're 2-0, and they're a really good football team. And coming up for them, they're at the Buccaneers in what is not an easy game all of a sudden for Philadelphia. Number 2, the Dallas Cowboys. They're 2-0 in the year with the big wins over the Giants and the Jets. I had the Cowboys won last week, but I'm having some regrets about that. And I feel like I maybe overrated the Giants and the Jets a little bit before the year, especially the Jets now with Rodgers hurt. But the Giants I probably did overrate before the year because they scored 0 points in 6 quarters before the comeback the other day. And then coming up for Dallas, they are at Arizona in a game where everyone is going to be picking them in their survivor pool. And number 1, the San Francisco 49ers, impressive win over the Steelers and an impressive win over the Rams, the frisky Rams on Sunday. And then coming up for San Francisco, they host the Giants on Thursday Night Football in a game that looks easier now than it did before the start of the year with Barkley and Andrew Thomas both hurt. All right, so there you have it for the power rankings. Now move on to the news and notes for today. We'll start with the Nick Chubb situation. He is out for the season after he suffered a significant knee injury. He probably tore his ACL. I feel really bad. It was just an awful injury. It was gruesome. The Browns probably would have won yesterday had he not gotten injured. Although the backup did a nice job, but the Steeler run D made some adjustments, so I guess it's credit to Tomlin too. But just absolutely brutal for the Browns. And they're a team that everybody's going to be fading down these next couple weeks with this injury, and then Conklin's out for the year too. So the Browns might be headed for a rough season, and it's just devastating. Nick Chubb's one of the best running backs in football, so hopefully he recovers well and he gets back on the field next season and is better than ever. Just devastating. And it was a hit by Minkah Fitzpatrick, who was ruled out for the rest of the game with a chest contusion as he was in the hospital. But at least he was released, and the Steelers are optimistic that he'll be fine. Somebody else that's out for the season is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It looks like he has a torn pec. That is brutal for the Lions. He's one of their better defensive backs that they have. Devontae Adams good to play after the Raiders said he's cleared after concussion evaluation. Deontay Johnson placed on IR with a hamstring injury. It's not great for Pittsburgh. They went without him yesterday. No timeline on Austin Eckler's return, as Brandon Staley has no official return date. There's so many injuries. That's just really brutal so far about the NFL. We lose Rodgers and we lose Nick Chubb for the year. And a lot of other guys were losing in spurts. But a Baker on the IR with the hamstring injury, not great for Arizona. Joe Burrow's Monday night status is up in the air, as Zach Taylor says it's hard to say if Burrow will play against the Rams after aggravating his calf. Yikes. Jalen Waddle in concussion protocol, that's not great for the Dolphins. Odell Beckham Jr.'s ankle injury shouldn't affect his availability, so it looks like he'll be okay. Lions linebacker James Houston fractured his ankle out 6 to 8 weeks. That is not great for Detroit's defense. David Montgomery has a thigh bruise. Will take a few weeks to heal. That's not great for the Lions either. Chase Edmonds, the Bucs running back, has a grade 2 MCL sprain out 4 to 6 weeks. Not great for them. And Saquon Barkley's out for 3 weeks with the right ankle sprain. That's not great for the Giants. That's why they're lower in the power rankings than some other 0-2 teams, for that matter, because injuries matter when it comes to these power rankings. So the Rams have discussed Cam Akers trades with several teams. He's definitely going to get moved. The Cowboys cut Ronald Jones following 2-game suspension for PED violation. The league files grievance with the Players Association as the league alleges union advised running backs to consider exaggerating injuries to get leverage in contract talks. Oof. That's going to be an ugly situation. And then Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs rework his contract as Mahomes is to get paid $210.6 million over the next 4 years. Wow. Jaguars safety Rayshon Jenkins rips Travis Kelce and says he thinks he's doing too much. College football, Deion Sanders says that Travis Hunter's out 3 weeks as he'll miss the Oregon and USC games. That's not great at all. And that's going to affect the point spread a little bit when I do the college football lines. SMU raises $100 million in a week as both alumni and non-alumni donors support their move to the ACC. Speaking of Colorado, that's a 9 a.m. Pacific time kickoff on September 30th. So that's probably where the big noon show is going to head for Fox. So that's really interesting. And that game is in Boulder, so that'll be 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And at 9 a.m. Pacific if you're a USC fan. Michigan State is officially firing Mel Tucker for the cause as the school has begun the process. So this was bound to happen, obviously. I remember a couple weeks ago it was a misreport saying that he was fired and ended up being suspended. So it looks like that reporter was correct that he was getting fired. And then that same reporter, I think it was Brett McMurphy, said, I reported this on September 10th. Well, he did, but the school said he was suspended. And they either lied to the media, made a decision that they should have been fired all along, or there's some other factors in this as well. So, yeah. And then more Colorado talk. Deion Sanders shades Reagan $4.5 million as the CEO of Blenders Eyewear says we found our Jordan. Some baseball stuff. Adam Wainwright gets to 200 wins, so that's awesome for him. He's pitched well the last couple starts. I faded him on the podcast doing picks, but now I'm glad that I didn't do it for best bet like I did a couple weeks ago. The Tampa Bay Rays agreed to a new stadium deal as they are set to announce a deal for a stadium near downtown St. Pete. So that is pretty neat. And then the league announces a new award as Silver Slugger Team Awards to honor the best offensive squad in the AL and the NL, and will include a fan vote. That's very interesting. The Braves are getting it in the National League. That's no doubt in my mind. The AL, it's either going to be Texas or Baltimore, you would think, right? Maybe Houston. But it's probably going to be Texas or Baltimore. And then Edwin Diaz will not pitch this season as he's been throwing with the Mets. Will not risk him with their season. Not extending into October. So, right decision by the Mets. You don't want to risk anything. I was saying that the last couple of months. So how about this? A mystery team is linked to Damian Lillard as an unnamed Eastern Conference team has emerged in Lillard trade talks. I think I know what team it is. I thought this particular team at first, and then it was reported that this particular team signed the free agent that was linked to the Miami Heat. And that, my friends, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Kelly Oubre, 1-year deal. He averaged over 20 a game for the Hornets last year. And they signed Oubre. And then they're talking about how Miami was going to sign Oubre if they traded for Dame. So I think that mystery team is Philly, and you can't convince me otherwise. And who is it? Boston? Is it the Knicks? It shouldn't be the Knicks. They have a point guard. His name is Jalen Brunson. Yes, Dame's probably a better player than Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson is probably better suited for the Knicks than Damian Lillard, to put it that way. And maybe it's Brooklyn, who I've been touting a lot to get him, to go with Mikal Bridges. Or is it the Toronto Raptors? Those are a couple. Maybe it's Atlanta for Trae Young, which has been thrown out as a hypothetical. Is it the Orlando Magic? We'll see who it is, but I genuinely believe and is convinced that it's Philly. And then Victor Wembanyama to play in the 2024 Olympics, as he intends to play for France next summer, so that's awesome for international basketball and for the Olympics. And there you have it for news and notes. Last but not least, my best bet of the day brought to you by FanDuel. So I'm going to lay a quarter unit for this pick. And I'm going to go with baseball. And there's a total I like. These two teams combined for 20 runs yesterday, and the total is only 7.5. I don't really love Blake Snell. Where things stand, he is the favorite for the NL Cy Young. He's minus 900. And I think that Colorado could score some runs, especially against the Padres bullpen. So for a quarter unit, I'm going to go over 7.5 between the Padres and the Rockies for best bet of the day. All right, so that's it for the show. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything, looking at everything tomorrow. Maybe we'll do baseball power rankings tomorrow, or I might do college football thoughts through the first couple of weeks of the season. So stay tuned for that. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.